It's bigger than Biotech.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of It's Bigger Than Biotech. I'm especially excited for today's episode because it's with someone who genuinely cares about the career development of early talent, and I feel like his career is a testament to that, and he provides a lot of effort into doing this. And so I'm very excited to introduce you to Rene Hubert from Amgen. Rene, how are you feeling? Are you excited to be on here?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. Hey, thanks so much for inviting me on this podcast. And I want to applaud what you're doing to bring awareness of this great industry, biotech, which I've been a part of for over 25 years, and helping to educate people about it. And in this podcast here, trying to help people who are just getting started with biotech. We want to, start up their biotech careers, right? That's what it's all about today.
Absolutely. Yeah. You hit the nail right on the head. We're really excited to help some students out today and give them some practical advice on how to take the best first steps in order to have a fruitful career in a way. And so, just to start us off, Renee, I wanted to ask you, what is Amgen and what do they do, and what is your role in Amgen?
Okay. Yeah, so Amgen is one of the first biotech companies to come out and started in 1980, using the fruits of the recombinant DNA technology revolution, right? Back in the 70s, late 70s, for the first time, humans could um, uh, cut and paste DNA at will. And that was a really, really important step. People take it for granted right now, but DNA cloning wasn't around until the late 70s. So Amgen harnessed that technology. That's a technology part of biotech. And the bio part is to treat diseases. So they were one of the first companies to develop large molecule therapeutics or protein therapeutics. And they continue to do that. We have over 31,000 people around the globe. We impact about 15 million patients every year with our medicines. Some of them are large molecules, some of them are small molecules and other modalities as well. But it's so great to be with a company that where all 31,000 people wake up every morning focused on the patient, trying to improve and impact the lives of patients. So in my career, I've been developing large molecule therapeutics, antibodies, antibody drug conjugates, T cell engagers, some really cool molecules to treat diseases. But last year, my role changed to being director of early career talent and academic engagement, which is I'm so grateful for that because all through my career I was passionate about training people like you every day, trying to help the next generation of scientists get their feet into the biotech industry. And Amgen, because they feel it's so important to train next generation scientists, assigned this role to me full time. So I got the best job ever, where I talk to people like you, and I go to universities on a regular basis. I give presentations about life in biotech. I try to do technology innovation pipelines, learn about the technologies at universities, and then trying to bring in the best talent. So I've developed PhD and master's level fellowship programs. And recently we started a post baccalaureate program, which is really exciting. And we had our first cohort in Thousand Oaks of 5. And in April, look out for it. We're going to have a posting for a baccalaureate program that's going to be in San Francisco. So it's a really cool opportunity. Maybe later in the podcast, I can tell you more about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. These are amazing opportunities for students looking to get their feet in to the biotech world and just see what it's all about. But also, something interesting I'd like to point out is I really love your t-shirt.
All right.
So, what is that about?
Well, I hope people on the call know what this is, right? But this is basically has to do with transcription, right? Transcribing RNA into protein. So it's the genetic code. It's how RNA translates to amino acids. It's like a decoder ring, which is kind of cool. And I'm really a geek. I have tons of these kinds of shirts. My sister-in-law buys them for me for Christmas. I have all these sciencey, geeky shirts and socks I like to wear. So I'm a science nerd for sure.
No, that's a really cool t-shirt. I feel like if I saw you just walking across the street, I'd immediately recognize you're in biotech, and I'd for sure go up to you and ask you what it's about. So I mean, it's a great conversation starter. I'll tell you that.
It is. I love it. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. Rene, I know you started your career off early as scientist at Agensis, I believe. So before you started your career as a scientist, who were you as a person, and how does that person still show up in your work today?
Yeah, great. Thanks for asking that. And before I go into that, I want to remind everyone that at the end of the podcast, I'm going to go through my 5-point plan for success in biotech. So make sure you stick around, you listen to the whole podcast, because at the very end, you're going to have this really great, concise 5-point plan for success. And along the way, I'll tell you how I developed that 5-point plan. And to start off with, I'll go back to my childhood where it all began. And unfortunately, I had a really tough childhood. I had a very dysfunctional family that I lived in, and it was not, it wasn't rainbows and lollipops. It was really challenging. So what I learned at a very young age in grade school was to go outside the family unit to find mentors, allies, and sponsors to support me, to listen to me, to encourage me in my love of science. So it's kind of interesting, you know, at such a young age, I understood the value of a mentor and I hung on to that, and I was like I was a kid in the front of the class, always asking questions. Oh, the annoying kid. And I wanted to get the highest grades on exams because I got praise and I got attention, and that really, it was really good. But the mentorship part has stuck with me throughout my career. So it's very, very important to have those mentors. The other aspect that I had is I had language barrier challenge. So believe it or not,
Mhm.
English is not my first language. I was born in Quebec, so French is my first language. And then we moved to Ontario, Canada, um, where I was in an English environment. So in grade school, I went to a French grade school, and transitioning to high school in English was so traumatic and it was very, very challenging. My grades suffered. I really had a big challenge there. And the way I compensated is I worked really hard. That taught me an amazing work ethic because I had to work twice as hard as the other kids to get decent grades while I had a part-time job and while I was struggling. So if I wasn't working and I wasn't in school, I was studying night and day, weekends. I was constantly studying to get my grade up. So that language barrier problem taught me how to work really hard. So to get good work ethic. So that's another way that I learned from my challenges. The other thing I had to deal with was so I'm a first generation university student. I'm sure on the call here there's a lot of people like that, and I think you can relate to the challenges, right? You have no siblings, no parents, no extended family members that have gone to university, so you kind of have to tread tread the path on your own, and that was really hard. But layered on top of that, unfortunately, my parents didn't appreciate higher education. My dad didn't even finish grade school, and I think my mom went to grade 9. So they really didn't get it. And on top of it, my dad didn't want me to go to university. So it might seem so foreign to people on the call right now that your a parent would actually say no to going to university. But I know there's some of you out there that are listening because I've interacted with a few first generation students where the parents are, uneducated, and my dad couldn't read and write English, so it created those challenges. And he wanted me to work construction with him like my older brothers did. So I had that pressure of, well, my older brothers are working construction, then Rene should do that as well. And he wanted me to start paying rent at home on top of it. So you could see all these layers of challenges as a first generation, plus these other things going on. So I wind up leaving my home, my parents' home, when I was 19 to live on my own because I had to do this. Now, what I learned from that, I mean, it was really challenging, as you can imagine, but the best lesson I got from that is I learned that it was important that I defined my goals and my dreams, and that I didn't
Mhm.
let anybody get in the way of that, not even my parents, right? So that's a little that's a little tough, right? To to go against your parents and strike out on your own. But it was such a valuable lesson for me, and I've carried it ever since. And I'm so, you'd be surprised how many people on the call don't really know what their passion and their dreams are. I had to learn in high school, and do the work to figure that out. And that's helped
Mhm.
me throughout my whole career. So Rita, what I did in high school, I meditated for weeks on what to do in life. But I didn't know it was called meditation back then. But what I did is I had headphones on. I listened to Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon for a couple weeks on end every day, trying to figure out what am I going to do when I grow up? What am I going to study at university? And asking myself those tough questions. And it came to me. And what it was I have a passion for biology and chemistry. I want to help
Right.
as many people as I can with that love of biology and chemistry. And the one way to do that is by finding a cure for cancer. So in high
Oh,
school, that became my North Star. That was my dream, find a cure for cancer. And I still want to find a cure for cancer. And I've had that dream my whole life. But during those hard times when my dad didn't want to support me and I had to go off on my own, it was like,
right.
no, working construction is not going to get me my dream of finding a cure for cancer. I got to do it on my own. I'm not going to let anybody stop me, and I'm going to go ahead with that. So that challenge was it helped me really learn that lesson well. The last challenge I'll go into real quick is I had, because I was out on my own, I had financial challenges, right? During university, I struggled a lot with food insecurity. I used to go to the grocery store with a calculator in my hand to add up all the items I put in my cart because I didn't want to be embarrassed to take stuff out of the cart when I got to the cashier. So, struggled with food insecurities. Paying rent was challenging for me a lot. I had a lot of credit card debt. I had all that anxiety around that. So what I did because of that is I worked really hard. Like I usually had part-time jobs during school. I always worked since high school. I had a part-time job, and then I did the cooperative education system in Canada, which was really great. So I went to school 4 months. I worked in a real job for 4 months. Went to school 4 months, and so on. And that was a really, really big learning experience. I did it because of necessity to put food on the table because those internships helped pay my way through. So it taught me how to budget, and get through life and that sort of thing. But it also taught me the importance of internships, and I'll get back to that later on in this podcast. Internships are so important, and they really changed my life. So, anyways, I went through a lot of challenges here, and I hope through those challenges, your listeners able to relate to that and also learn from those lessons.
Absolutely. I feel like actually there's a lot of content in there that I wanted to kind of break down and ask more questions on. So, one thing I want to ask you about was when you mentioned you had to define your dreams and goals much earlier in life, and you asked yourself some hard questions. What questions were you asking yourself at that time?
Yeah.
And what questions did you find to be the most important in moving that needle towards clarity?
Yeah, that's a really good question. First of all, I had to do the work. It's not passively going to happen to you, right? It's not going to happen in a shower or when you're walking down the street. You have to consciously disconnect from everything, turn off all your devices, all distractions, and that's what I did. I was in a basement in my house with headphones on, lying on the couch with all the lights off, just contemplating life and trying to figure things out. And at the time it was kind of it was basically a vision quest to the future. What do I want my life to look like? What do I really really love? What is my passion, right? What am I really really good at? And I'll touch on that again as well. What is my superpower? What are my natural talents? Right? And what would happen is it was kind of like, this vision quest. It was a journey of ups and downs. Like sometimes I would feel kind of heavy and this doesn't feel good. Like math and physics doesn't feel that good to me. So I don't really like that. Biology and chemistry, I'd feel lighter and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Right. So I was in touch with my feelings when I was going through that thought process. You have to really be, introspective to do that. You can't be looking at devices and trying to get external feedback on that. You got to go inward. What does your heart feel? What does your brain feel in the interaction, right? What are your emotions while you're thinking this out? So you have to be really,
Yeah.
really in touch with your body and your emotions. And then what would happen was, again, certain things would keep bubbling up and I'd feel lighter and I'd feel good about it, right? Like biology and chemistry, finding a cure for cancer, right? Those things made me excited. And when I hit that moment, it was like a eureka moment. I was like, yes, that's it. I want to find a cure for cancer. And that's my goal in life, right? And I felt so much better having that. So, and it's a personal journey. People may have different ways of getting there, right? Maybe you take a walk on the beach for a weekend, or you get away, get a
Mhm.
cabin on the beach, listen to the waves crashing for a weekend, or you a cabin in the woods where you're really quiet and there's no devices, no TV, nothing, and you just think about this. Because if you don't do that work, it's going to be hard to get through the challenges you have later in life, right? Those that sentence, I used it so many times throughout my life. I want to find a cure for cancer especially when things are hard, right? Science is crazy
Mhm.
hard, right? It's not for the
Yeah.
faint of heart. Things take a long time to see results. Your experiments fail. You got to repeat. Sometimes you have these dark moments like, why should I keep doing this? So having that sentence ready, that's why I'm doing it. I want to find a cure for cancer. I want to find a cure for Alzheimer's. I want to find a
Right.
cure for pancreatic cancer. The hard questions, trying to do that. So yeah, and it's a really great question. I'm really passionate about this area because people
Right.
often don't do enough work to figure that out. It's one of the most important things in your life. Get out there,
Mhm.
figure out what that one sentence is. What is the why in your life? Why are you doing the science? Why are you
Absolutely.
excited about it?
Absolutely. I really feel like finding your why is like the first best step to starting your journey. But also, like, one thing I want to just getting to know you better. Why was that one sentence for you curing cancer? Because out of everything you could be
Yeah,
doing in the
yeah.
world, why would it be curing cancer?
Yeah, it's a good question because you might think, oh, maybe I had an aunt that died of cancer or a sibling that had cancer or something. No, at that stage in my life, there was no one close to me that had cancer. For me, it was that's a big problem to solve, right? I want to challenge myself with a big, big challenge. Um, and so it was all about the challenge, just making sure that I picked something that was really challenging, and tied into that, it would make a big impact in the world, right? I wanted to do that. Like most people want to leave the world a better place, right? That's what I wanted to have a big impact on the world, change the world for the better. What better way to change the world than to find a cure for cancer, right? It's a little naive that I would find a single cure for all cancers, right? But it's still a goal of mine. And if I don't find it by the time I'm out of this business, I'm hoping that one of the students that I mentor and train will find the cure for cancer or for Alzheimer's, and so on. That'll be my legacy. Hopefully someone that I've interacted with or someone on the call right now will get motivated
Right.
to do the same thing, right? So what is your
Absolutely.
what is your passion, Rita?
I feel like my passion has always been accessibility. It's on the flip side. It's actually very similar to curing cancer. However, mine's more on the side of once you create that cure to cancer, I want to make sure everyone in the world who has cancer gets it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I mean, you could have the most life-saving drug, but if it doesn't reach the right people at the right time, it doesn't mean anything. So mine's more on the commercialization side of things, where I really believe that giving accessibility and equitable accessibility at that is, I feel like, one of the key things the industry needs to be doing that we're failing at. I feel like that's the legacy I want to leave behind, at least. Either through anything I do or anything I can help someone do. It's very similar to yours. I could kind of see I'm connecting the dots on your vision and your legacy that you want to leave behind. And actually, one more clarity I wanted on that was, what separates your why or your purpose from a goal? What's the difference between purpose and a goal? Because I feel like curing cancer can also be a goal for someone, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, it's
how
a
do
little
you?
bit, yeah, it overlaps a little bit. The goals to me are kind of like stepwise achievements along the way, right? So my purpose is to and my why is to find a cure for cancer. Along the way, it's like, well, I want to get a PhD first so that I can have much knowledge I need and much ammunition to fight this battle, right? I needed a PhD to do that. So that was a goal along the way. And then it was like, oh, I need a postdoc too, so I can get even more independent and learn how to do research. And then, then I want to get a job in biotech that is doing that kind of work, right? And it keeps it going. And by the way, I said I wanted to find a cure for cancer throughout high school, throughout my undergrad, throughout my PhD, throughout my postdoc, and I wasn't doing any cancer work that whole time. So for about 12 or 14 years, I kept saying it, but I wasn't doing the cancer work. It was my first job after my postdoc where I joined a company, Agensis, that was all dedicated to finding cure for cancer. So sometimes it takes a little long time to get to where your purpose is and your why, right? But I stuck with it. I kept saying it all the time. When people would ask me, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" I want to find a cure for cancer, right? So, it's like a mantra. You repeat it over and over again.
Right. And so, even though your purpose is the same or always has been the same, was there ever a moment where you kind of doubted it, or did it ever change or evolve in a way, or has it always been the same from day one?
Yeah, no, that's great. A great question because again, it gets back to challenges, in life. And I look back. For me, one of the big challenges was during my PhD. So I was doing
Uh-huh.
my PhD, and you have to do these qualifying exams. You know the concept of a qualifying exam? It's writing out these exams to show that you're smart enough to continue with the PhD program. They can ask you questions on anything in the world. 2 days of written exams, and I failed the first time. And that just devastated me. I was like, "Holy jeez, do I have what it takes to have get a PhD?" Right? I was just totally floored. I'd spent 6 months studying for this exam, right? And I was just so full of doubt and anxiety, and it was tough. And luckily, my wife was there for me. I'm so grateful, and we got through that together. And again, it's about surrounding yourself with people that support you and having mentors and support system. And I had that support system with her. And I tried again, and luckily I passed. And it just was an example of how um, you know I kept sticking with it again. I want to find a cure for cancer. I got to get that PhD, right? I'm not gonna fail the second time, right? So hang on to it. So that's one of the areas that happened. And then the second area, which I think is an interesting story for your listeners, halfway through my career, I kind of got burned out a little bit, and I was at a company that I wasn't very happy working at, and I won't mention the name. Um, and I struggled, and I was having health issues, emotional issues. I was just not happy, and it was a big struggle. And so luckily stocks from a Genesis wind up because it got bought out by a Stellus, converted. So I had a decent amount of money that I just got out of science completely. I actually took a sabbatical and completely walked away from science. And I helped me understand the value of a sabbatical to professors, right, in academia that take sabbaticals. And I was
Right.
exploring all sorts of artistic stuff, nothing scientific. I was a roadie in a rock band. I was a sound guy, did retreats in Bali. Um,
Right.
uh, we had a nonprofit that went into prisons and halfway houses. I had a television show pitch. I had all sorts of crazy fun stuff that I did for a year. And so that was almost like walking away from science, but I knew it was not going to be forever. I just knew that I needed to recharge, so that
Yeah.
wasn't having that burned out feeling anymore. And it was the best thing I could have done in my career. When I came back to
Right.
science a year later, I was so invigorated. I was so recharged, and I haven't looked back since. I've just loved it. But it taught me again, one of those lessons about staying in touch with your feelings and what your body is telling you and what your mind and soul is telling you. When you're in an unhappy job, you'll know it and you'll feel it. And I kept ignoring it and I kept going and, oh, I'm going to get through this. Oh, it's going to be okay. So
Right.
it teaches you that sometimes you have to change jobs or change where you are because you're not aligned with what's going on in your workplace. So be active and quickly take care of that before you start having health problems, right?
Yeah, I feel like a very important theme throughout that answer was that environment is super important. Like that's something that really stuck out to me the moment you said it, because I feel like your environment sort of makes or breaks you. People don't realize it enough, but it's like the support you get, the people you surround yourself with, really set the standards for you as a person. Um, and so, in regards to environment, how important was that sabbatical for you to really change that environment completely, not do anything related to your purpose in a way,
Yeah, yeah.
and then come back, right?
Yeah, it
What was
was
that?
it was so restorative and healing, and it was terrific. And I was so lucky, to have that opportunity, right? I had some extra money from my stocks. We don't have children, so we didn't have to deal with that. So we can go travel and leave the country at any time and go on these tours with the band and do all this kind of really fun stuff. So I can understand that not all listeners would have that opportunity. It's kind of a unique thing, but personally for me, it was the best thing. And it was like almost like a brain reset, right? The left and right brain. I was able to tap into my artistic side. I was doing music videos for the band. I was doing art for a clothing line. I was writing, like I said, television show pitches and doing some writing. And so it sometimes it takes that a little bit to step away, to clear your mind, and and heal your body and soul. It was amazing.
Right. Was there ever a moment where what you were doing and your purpose was conflicting with each other in a way where did that ever leave any points of friction with you when you were on your sabbatical? It was like, oh, what am I doing? Making video for a band when I should be curing cancer. Was there ever a moment like that for you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, but I still kept hanging on to the fact that I'm eventually going to find a cure for cancer. There wasn't any frictions for most of that year. Um, like, because I was enjoying myself so much. It was like, I was in a playground. It was like a long vacation. I was doing all these fun activities. But near the end, I was kind of like, hey, if I stay away too long, if my sabbatical is a little too long, I might have a hard time getting back into the work life, right? So that's what I started. It's funny because the week I started thinking that this is the
Hmm.
universe coming together, an attorney contacted me that I used to do work with at Agensis. We filed 100 patents together. I have 100 patents, and he was at another company, and he needed a bioinformatics specialist to work with his legal team. And so
Hmm.
the week that I was thinking of going back to work, he contacted
Right.
me, and so I was a consultant for him for another year. So I was working outside. We had an office in our home, and I was doing consulting work for that company for a year. So I was actually away for 2 years from the traditional brick and mortar kind of a job and having a lab team and all that sort of thing. But at the end of
Hmm.
the 2 years, I was ready to come back, and I was feeling like working as a consultant in an office in my home, not
Hmm.
having a lot of face-to-face interaction and live interaction with people was kind of getting me
Right.
down a little bit. I was ready to go back.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm glad that I did. And I went back to Agensis after
Uh-huh.
it had progressed to the next level. So it was a great thing. I got so lucky with that experience, right? So yeah, thanks.
It's almost the universe just coming together and just like naturally leading you to your path.
Yeah,
So
you're
it's
right.
very beautiful to see in a way. It's just amazing. So I mean, it's meant for you when like the universe is coming together and being like, okay, Rene, you need to go back into the industry and try to cure cancer now.
You
So
got
I
it.
mean, there
You
you
got
go.
it.
That's why we're here. So it's perfect. It worked out.
I'm so lucky, so
Um,
great, so grateful. I've had a charmed life in that respect. So I'm really lucky.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so just moving on to a more student oriented topic here is for students listening right now who feel behind or overlooked or unsure they belong in biotech at all, what would you say to them directly? And what do you want them to hold on to when their path feels more uncertain?
Yeah, I think I've touched on the answers to that a little bit.
Okay.
Look,
Yeah.
it's completely natural to feel insecure at your stage. most people's lives, you've got the imposter syndrome. You carry that with you your whole life, and especially when you're younger. And I've dealt with that as well. I had anxieties around, finances, my abilities to succeed. Am I smart enough to do this? Am I, are my peers gonna do better while I don't do well? So it's absolutely natural to feel all those things. And when I look back, it's kind of one of the regrets that I have in my career is I spent too much time worrying. And when I look back at the times where I was really worrying, I was kicking butt. I was doing some amazing stuff, but in the moment, I felt so insecure that I didn't believe in myself that I was doing as well as I could do, right? So
Mhm.
if I could tell the listeners, it's like try to have more confidence in yourself. Even though I surrounded myself with support system, I still had that insecurity, and I think it's part of human nature when you're young. So try to you know, to have more confidence in yourself. Make sure you're surrounding yourself with mentors and a support system. And again, make sure you know what your purpose is, your goal, your one sentence. What is the one sentence for you? Like mine, I want to find a cure for cancer. That helps you get you through those kinds of things. And the other thing too is oftentimes you think, oh, John and Paul here and Mary, they have it together. Like they're the really smart people in my class. They're ready for their PhDs and they're going to do really well. I'm not good like they are, right? So I'm going to sit back a little bit because I can't measure up to them. They're messed up too. They might look like they have it all together, but everybody's
Mhm.
messy, right?
Mhm.
Um, so don't let that get you down, and hang on to
Mhm.
your dream and do what it takes to achieve that dream. Don't let anybody else, like I said, my parents or whatever, or your thoughts of other people in your class. Don't let anybody get you down. You got to hang on to your dream and just go for it.
Absolutely. Wait, actually, Rene, I had this one theory that I was kind of thinking about, and I wanted to shoot it down with you, actually. So, it's perfect segue. I wanted to explore this with you. So, one my theory was that whenever you're jealous of someone in one aspect of life, for example, like I had a classmate who was great at speaking in public, was very confident in what he was saying and doing, and it made me realize something about myself. Whenever I'm jealous of someone for something, I realize I value that one skill greatly. So maybe I should be working towards that skill. Would you say that's a mindset that is viable, or do you feel like it would long term lead to the same mindset of jealousy and destruction in a way?
Yeah. That's a terrific, insightful question. Thanks for bringing that up because it comes up through life, and I just mentioned it a little bit. And like for me, I kind of learned that lesson in high school a little bit. So I talk about mentors. I had peers in high school that I considered mentors. I had one that was in my class, and then I had another that was two classes ahead of me. These guys were really really smart, and they had it together. They had their own challenges, but they were successful, and they were like one was the top of the class, and he didn't even have to study that hard. So I could have easily been jealous of him, but I was inspired by him, right?
Mhm.
So it's like I wanted to be like him. That's why he was a mentor for me because I had low grades in my first year of high school, and he had these high grades without studying, and I wanted to be like him, and I had to work hard just to try to catch up, but I still didn't catch up with him, right? So that lesson goes throughout all of your life, and like at Amgen, I'm surrounded by giants all the time, like some super really really smart people, really accomplished, terrific people, and they inspire me to be better, to step up my game. And you want to be in that kind of environment, right? You don't want to have that's one lesson I tell students. You don't want to be in a job where it's very easy and the people around you are kind of boring and not that inspiring and you don't learn that much from them. That's not a great job to be in. You want to move to a job where you're not the smartest kid in the room, right? You
Mhm.
want to surround yourself with really bright, really accomplished people so you can raise up your game and um, and be challenged at the same time, right? And I quickly got over that jealousy thing. I think that's something every day you got to work on. I maybe you'll realize that it's not really jealousy you're feeling. You're feeling inspiration,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully
Absolutely.
that's how you'll see it in a positive sense. As opposed to being jealous of someone, when you're inspired, you want to be close to them. You want to help them too. You want them to help you, and you want to connect. You want that to rub off on you, right? Yeah. So I would try to reframe that when you're getting that feeling in the future. It's actually inspiration, not jealousy you're feeling.
Yeah. So it's more from a competing mindset to a collaboration
Yeah.
mindset. It's
Perfect.
not in a
Perfectly said.
competition,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I really like that actually. That's a great way to put it. And so just going on to more of the aspect of your struggle. You briefly mentioned in your previous answer you went on a sabbatical, but it was because that you were frustrated at work, you weren't feeling well physically, mentally. Could you kind of walk us through that? Like, no names provided, of course, but uh, what was that gradual shift into the low, like the low point, and why? What were some obvious signs you ignored, or you wish going back you would have kind of recognized a bit earlier?
Yeah. So the main thing there was that my goals weren't realigned, not aligned anymore, right? So in the previous jobs, I was focused on finding a cure for cancer. In this job, it wasn't doing that. It was using another set of skill sets that I had, um, and so it it just I lost that alignment philosophically about what the job was about. The other things that happened were that I wasn't really at the end of the day that super excited about what I was doing. Had a low level of excitement. Frankly, I wasn't that good at it too because I didn't have that excitement. I wasn't that good at it. It was a challenging, really tense, high-strung environment. It was like go, 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 and I wasn't really keeping up because of these challenges that I had. And so it and then when I, kind of try to get some help, it was kind of like, like keep up or fall behind or get out of the way kind of a situation. I really didn't get that much support to help me through that. And
Mhm.
I kept thinking, oh, I can do better, I can do better. But at the end of the day, it was more like it was just about putting food on a table and having a paycheck, really. And so, and I wasn't passionate about the work that I was doing. So I think that's what you have to keep in mind, right? Like if your passion levels go down, your levels of interest go down, you're just kind of trying to get by, just paying the rent kind of a thing. Sometimes you have to do that for a while. It's life. And but then you're always looking for something else that's more aligned. That's, and really realistically, you should get a job while you still have a job, right? A new job while you still have a job. It's harder to get a job when you're unemployed, right? So and if you're in those situations, start looking and start using your networks to try to find another job if you're ever in that situation.
Right, absolutely. I really like that point of find a job when you have a job because then you're in more of power to kind of place yourself in a position for finding that job that aligns versus the first job you get. So in that situation was like because the moment you were answering it and you said this job was out of alignment for you, my first question was why did you take the job in the first place? You know,
Yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of it had to do with putting food on the table. I'd been laid off from a previous
right.
job, and yeah, it wasn't a transition type thing. I unfortunately in this business you get laid off. I've been laid off twice, and that was the first time I got laid off. So I was looking for a job, and this is one of the first interviews that came up. It was using a skill set that I was pretty good at early in my career, and I thought I could return to it. Um, and it was conveniently close to home. There was like some practical matters in it as well. But again, it was just yeah, mostly practical reasons.
Understood. Understood. And so just looking back, right? Layoffs being, I mean, it's a known fact that layoffs are like a common thing in the industry.
Yeah.
what would your guide to dealing with a layoff be? Like,
Yeah.
what are some necessary steps you should be taking care of when you know this part is coming? You know?
Well, so oftentimes you don't know that your layoffs are happening, and actually that's probably the better situation when you don't know. I've been in a situation where there were like for months we knew layoffs were coming, and that's horrible. Like you're everyone's depressed, everyone is just worried, anxious. You're working on your resume on the side. You're not being very productive. It's a really bad environment. I'd rather just walk in one day, and that's what happened at Agensis. When I got laid off there, we just showed up one July sunny morning, and we were ushered into a room, and everyone was laid off. And it was like, "Oh my god, really?" No one had any idea. But so the preparation part, right? So in this business, no guarantees that you're gonna have a job for 30, 35 years. So make sure that you've got a nest egg saved up in the bank for, a good 2 or 3 months at least of living expenses that you can fall back on. Now, if you're in a small startup type company, if you get laid off, you may not have a good severance. That's so you got to really make sure you've got that nest egg prepared, because you might have some issues. One way to do it too is to have your vacation time accrued, so your vacation time will be paid out to you, so that gives you a little bit of extra money. Um, but if you're in a bigger company like Amgen, the severance packages are usually very reasonable, really, really nice, and they'll help keep you going for a while.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the benefits of being in a large company that cares about their employees, right? They understand it's a traumatic event, and they want to support their employees in their transition. So, but you still want to have some cash savings available in that situation as well. Um, the other way to prepare, and it's one of my key pieces of advice, is ABN, always be networking. So you should always have your networks alive and well, and always be connected, right? When I got laid off from Agensis, my
Uh-huh.
first call was to a colleague at Amgen, and right away I got into an interview and I got a job within a few months. Like it got right in there, right? But it's because I knew him from working at a previous company. That was my network, right? So, and if you're having some inklings that your company may be having financial issues and you might be going into a layoff, step that networking up, those activities up, and make sure that you've got, you're really well connected. Make sure your resume is up to date as well. That you're ready in case like you get laid off. So yeah, I think that those are the few pieces of advice I think you can
Absolutely.
take. But you got to be ready. It happens to
Yeah.
everybody. I think I've survived probably a dozen layoffs in my life, but I got hit on two. So they happen. It's traumatic. It's traumatic for the people that are laid off, and it's also traumatic for the survivors too. Because you walk in the next day and you got all these empty offices and desks and lab spaces where you used to have friends and colleagues working at, and you gotta keep working, you gotta keep it going, you gotta sometimes fill in the jobs that were vacated, and you gotta work extra hard. It's challenging for everybody. So, I would hope that it wouldn't happen to you, but you gotta be ready for those situations.
Yeah, that sounds like a very tough situation, and I really like your advice on ABN, which is always be networking. Great abbreviation. And so in regards to networking, actually, I wanted to ask you, as a student, what is more powerful? Is it more networking with professionals in the field or networking with fellow peers in your
Mm,
major in school?
yeah.
Like what pays higher dividends over your career? In your experience, what has paid higher dividends?
Yeah, I would hate to assign priorities in those two areas. They're both important, and you got to be networking at all levels all the time, including when you're in your job, right? Because you have to network to get things done. You can't do science in a vacuum with one person. You always have to be networking. So those networking skills need to be developed at all levels, and you got to be connected with your peers. You got to be connected with industry as much as possible. But you really got to get yourself out there. Most of the jobs that I've gotten were because I knew somebody at that company. and I networked in there, right? It's one of the really, really key places. And even now with a tough job market, it's even more important that you've got a good network and that you're always networking. It's every day is an opportunity to network and to learn and to meet someone and you never know when they're going to help you out in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so just bring it more to your personal context, right? What can a student do to be able to reach out to professionals in the field? Like, for example, like me emailing you or me somehow reaching out to you. What ways are professionals most happy to help students? Or like, what is the best way to reach out to professionals?
Well, you're a great example every day of how to network, right? You're networking with me. You got all these people on your podcast series that you're networking with. You're a really great
Absolutely.
example of a super networker, right? So
Right.
congratulations and hats off to you for finding this mechanism to the network. And hopefully the listeners will follow this kind of examples. But others are like clubs, right? I've been contacted, USC. There's a great club there, the Nexium Club,
Yeah.
Nexus
Nexus.
clubs.
Yes.
They're business entrepreneurs in science, right? And they connected up with me, right? And so they're
Nice.
always networking, and they're meeting all sorts of people. They're visiting companies all over LA, and they visited Amgen. So those are the super networking skills, right? Putting clubs together and podcasts and other organized structures. Biotech Connections LA, right? Fabulous
Yes.
organization started by that's run by USC and UCLA grad students, right? I've given talks at their organizations many times. Amgen's a sponsor now,
Mm-hmm.
and and that's an organized association that's
Mm-hmm.
focused on networking, and people got involved in it that way. You get face-to-face interactions, which are really important. So
Right.
the other way to network is through like local biotech trade associations, right? They're like in LA, we've got Biocom, we've got SoCalBio.org, we've got BCLA. These are basically kind of like trade associations that are encouraging the biotech ecosystem. And all these organizations usually have at least once a month meetup session or a symposium or career panel or something. Get involved with that. Career clubs. I mean, clubs at universities. I've spoken to many clubs, like at UC Santa Barbara and they and UCLA. They have these clubs that are from like the chemical engineering
Mm-hmm.
class or something, and they invite speakers over to give talks. Get involved in positions of leadership around that, because then you get to network more meaningfully that way. Now, the next level is to go into LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn's a terrific resource for connecting with people. And don't be afraid to cold call people or send emails, like you said. Keep the email short and concise, but your calling card is, I am a student or I am a recent graduate and I would like to talk to you about your career. That kind of thing opens the door. And people find it hard to say no to a student, especially, right? So reach out, keep it short, put in something personal in there that you know something about that person, right? Like I saw your podcast, Rene, or
Right.
I saw your LinkedIn post on this, and I thought that was really interesting, and blah blah blah. Like just make it a little bit more personal rather than like this call out to a whole bunch of different people that's impersonal, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
networking is so important. Sorry, I just went on and on about it, and I can go on for a full podcast on that.
Well, that's good. That's exactly the advice students need. And honestly, like a lot of like being a senior now, a lot of the freshmen and sophomores in the clubs I'm in, or just in general, reach out to me regarding how do you network or like what do you need to be doing. And so a very common question I'm asked, it's very frequent, is do you ask for your ask, right? Like for example, the job is the ask on the first time you're meeting someone. Right. So like that's always a question I get. And I've always been kind of like my answer has changed over time. However, I wanted to relay this question onto you and what would your thoughts on that be?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I I'm okay with an ask like that after you've had a conversation for a while and you're chatting, but become prepared. Like the worst thing you can say is, especially at the beginning of a conversation, is I'm looking for a job. Do you have a job for me? Right? That's the worst calling card you can have. Right? First, you talk about each other. You have a personal pitch together, right? You have your 2-minute pitch about yourself, and you can talk about it. You learn about the other person at the company that you're interested in. You bring in some personal insights. Maybe you read his paper or her paper, and you know something, or you met them at a conference. You can talk about that. Um,
Right.
and then you talk about career paths, and maybe at the end you kind of feel it out. But usually it's you can have an ask, but make sure you're ready with it. Like you have a job description, and usually there's a code, a number, letter, a code number for a job that you're interested in. That you did the work yourself to find out on the career site what's available. You don't want to give me a job, like go find a job for you. You got to do the work yourself. Come to the conversation ready with a couple jobs that you're thinking of applying to,
Right.
or you've applied to, and it'd be interesting. Now, one little cheat here is so most companies have a referral program
Okay.
where the employee might get a couple $1,000s or so if the person they referred gets a job at Amgen. It basically motivates our staff to try to recruit and help with the recruiting process, right? So if you ask for a referral and you
Hmm.
make sure you did not apply for the job before you ask for the referral, because if you
Okay.
apply for the job before the referral takes place, then that person will not get the referral bonus if you get hired, right? So if you tell them, hey, I'm interested in job X, Y, and Z, I haven't applied yet, and I'm hoping you'll give me a referral to it. That might motivate the person that you're talking to because he might be thinking, ka-ching, okay, maybe if I refer this student, I might get a bonus out of it, right?
Right.
So, and then when you're referred, your resume gets more attention, and no guarantees, but it has a high probability of having success.
Absolutely. I really like the financial incentives, just like making everyone aligned. That's great. It's
Uh,
very smart, very corporate. No, that's great. But actually, like one versatile tool you mentioned in there was your 2-minute pitch, right? I remember the first time I spoke to you, you told me my pitch was too long, which was very funny and actually like great advice because yes, it was too long. So for students who don't know what the 2-minute pitch is and what its structure is, what would that be? Could you just slightly go a bit more into that?
Yeah, the personal your personal pitch, your personal statement, is part of your brand. It's so important. You'll use it all over the place. You can use it you'll use it during an interview, but you could use it if you happen to be at a conference and you run into somebody and you want to network, or you're at a conference in a coffee line and the VP of Merck is standing behind you and you start a conversation.
Right.
It's something you can pull out almost automatically as your calling card for a conversation, right? Without being, then you won't be nervous, because if you know you have a good pitch, it's solid, you've rehearsed it, you've repeated it over and over again, you've given your pitch to your neighbor, to your dog, to your mom, to your boyfriend. Just practice over and over again, and you'll keep refining it the more you do it. And when you go to these events, these trade association events every month, like you should be doing, you keep practicing it every time you go to the event, and you'll realize, I kind of flubbed it this time. Maybe I was a little too long, or maybe I had a little too many ums in my pitch, right? So I got to keep practicing it, right? So that's the importance of it. It's a calling card. It's almost like a security blanket for you when you're trying to network. You've got when you have a call, a career call, or a coffee chat with somebody, you pull it out. So so to me, it needs to be short, concise, crisp, and it has a logical flow to it. The worst thing you can do, and I've seen this with students, is that you're confusing, and you go off on tangents, and you're like, oh, and then I did this. Oh, boy, I forgot to say this, and then I went, and then the listener is like bombarded with this information that's chaotic, And what the listener is doing is trying to make sense of what you were talking about. All their brain energy is trying to make sense of what you're talking about instead of using their brain energy to think about what kind of a job can I help this person? How can I help this person? Because I understand their story very concisely and very clearly. I could, oh yeah, this, John in this department has an opening. You want people to be thinking that instead of like, what is this kid saying? Oh my God, I'm so confused. You don't want that, right? So you want a nice
Absolutely.
logical, and story is the important thing, right? You don't want to have a laundry list of things that you did. Then I went to high school, then I went to university, then I went to my PhD, and then I got a job here. No, 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 no. You drone on with like a laundry list of stuff that you're just going to bore the
Right.
hell out of the person, right? Have a
Absolutely.
story and bring in a little bit of a personal edge to it, right? Like your one sentence. I always use my "I want to find a cure for cancer" sentence in my pitch. It's always part of that. I always say in high school, I started, I created a goal for myself to find a cure for cancer, and that's motivated me to pursue advanced degrees, study, genomics and genetics, and get into the biotech industry that are focused on developing therapeutics for cancer and other therapies, and you kind of go on that way, right? So you make it a personal story, and you kind of highlight like kind of where you came from, what your motivation is, what your passion is. Your passion's got to come through. That's also really important. What you're talking about, if you're droning off a list, you're not passionate. Be really excited about what you're talking about, where
Right.
you've been, what your strengths are, and where you want to go, right? You kind of end with what's the next step. I want to get an internship in a biotech company that's doing biomanufacturing because I have, really, really excited about that, right? So your ask at the end of your pitch needs to be specific to the person you're talking to in general, if you can, but you usually end with a bit of an ask of where you want to go. What's your future going to be looking like? So you have a nice arc to your pitch. You're going to go from point A to point B to C to D. It all makes logical sense.
Right.
It's a story that anybody can understand, and you're not
Right.
confused. You're not going off on tangents and then, and
Yeah.
going too long and just being confused, right? So keep it crisp, keep it clean, keep practicing, keep practicing.
Right. Yeah. I really like the point about just giving your personal pitch to your mom, your dog, your boyfriend, girlfriends,
I'm
whoever.
serious. I'm serious. Because when you first say it, you feel kind of nervous. Like I have some postbacks that I work with at Amgen, and I've made them all put a personal pitch together, and we
Right.
practice
Oh.
it in sessions. And it's a little nerve wracking, they're kind of like, oh, okay. But it paid off with them because I arranged to have a meeting with our senior VP,
Mhm.
and their pitches were right on. Like, and that's a big moment, right? You're meeting in a conference room with the senior vice president of research, and
Mhm.
you don't want to be humming and hawing about what your life is like. And everyone kicked it off really well. And I like to say I had a little small part to do with that because for weeks beforehand we were practicing our personal pitches. So
Right.
always be ready with that pitch. You never know when you're going to need it.
Yeah. No, that's great. You're already leaving your legacy behind on these. It's already great. You're already making the impact you need to be making. That's perfect. And I really like the arc part of it. It's like where you're coming from, where are you now, and where are you going. I feel like if I had to summarize it, that's the arc I kind of saw, that on the structure I kind of saw that you were going towards. So yeah, very. I'll rewatch this episode just to keep that in mind. I feel like I'm
Well,
going back
and
to this episode.
it goes, Renee, it goes a little further than that too. It's about your personal brand as well, right? That's a larger story about how do you want people to perceive you, right? And you can, just like, you're branding cars or toasters and, whatever, you have a personal brand. You want to project to people around you, who you are and what you stand for, what are your superpowers and all that sort of thing. And so you got different ways of doing that branding. Your personal statement is one of it. Uh, your pitch is one of it. Your personal statement on your resume at the top of your resume is another way of doing it. And you can see there's some great videos on YouTube around personal branding and that sort of thing that people should look at to think about that aspect of themselves and how they're portrayed.
Absolutely. And are there any resources you would point them towards to kind of help them start off their journey into more personal branding and looking at their personal pitches in a way? Or do you feel like it's more of like a personal journey for everyone, or there are no resources for it?
Yeah, I know. Like I said, go online. Look, YouTube's got a lot of good, nice videos. I know Google. There's a Google career thing that I stumbled on that was actually pretty good. Where we talk about that. So, you'd be surprised. Yeah, there's tons and tons of materials out there. It is a little personal. You'll gravitate to certain ones, but do the work. Find out how to do that. Get that personal pitch in your back pocket. You can pull it out anytime you need it. You'll find it comforting, and it'll help you ABN as best as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So actually, like speaking of ABN, I really wanted to get into your framework. Actually, the Rene's career framework. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I'd love you to love for you to describe the framework, what it is, and like what are the key points that you've learned over your career that you've boiled it down to.
Thanks, Rene. Yeah. So I've advised many students, and one of the things I pull out of my back pocket is this Rene's 5-point plan for success in biotech. Okay. Now, this is and hopefully you stuck around for the whole podcast here to hear it, because that's really the important stuff. And if you scrub the head, that's fine, but make sure you listen to these 5-point plans. And I touch on some of these throughout the podcast and how I came about with this 5-point plan. But this is a very personal, introspective, egocentric view of what it takes to be good in biotech and to be successful. This is my personal 5 points. And if you ask anybody in the industry, they may have their own different 5 points. So make sure you ask, during your career chats, like, what are the 5 important things that you learn to get where you are? I took a lot of time thinking about these 5 points, and I'm I thought them in a way that they're also practical. So there's things you can actually do today, and hopefully learn from my experience. Okay. So I'll go through them first and then I'll go into a little more detail. First, internships. Second, ABC, always be challenging yourself. ABN is third, always be networking. Fourth is find your superpowers. And five is define your personal mantra. Okay. So the first and probably one of the most important ones is internships. Okay, I mentioned that I was in a cooperative education system in Canada and I had 6 amazing internships. They changed my life. They helped direct me into the direction I wanted to go, what I didn't want to go. They gave me 2 years of work experience by the time I graduated. It made my resume stand out when I was applying to grad school. Hey, this kid's got 2 years of work experience. He has all these techniques under his belt. He understands science. So you stand out. You want to look at your resume or have imagine your resume a few years from now if you're still in your undergrad. You want to make sure you've got internships on your resume. If you don't, you're going to have a hard time. If you got Carl's Jr. or you've got Genentech, who's going to hire the college junior person, right? So you got to really put in the energy to get those internships. So internships are so important for the experience, again, for setting your career path. It's during my internships that I fell in love with DNA and wanted to do a PhD in molecular biology. Okay, I didn't get that through my classroom stuff. So internship really important. Always be challenged, right? So part of the early parts for me of being challenged was getting a PhD, right? I left a country to go do a PhD. A PhD is hard enough as it is. I went from Canada to the US to do my PhD. I really, really challenged myself there. It was out of the box. It was uncomfortable, but I'm so glad I challenged myself. But throughout my career, I'm the one who volunteers for the tough assignments. You got to do the challenging things. And if you're not challenged in your job, you're not going to be learning very much. So keep that challenge going. ABN, always be networking. So important, as we talked about, right? To get those jobs, to get things done in your work life. And in your job, people that stand out are the good networkers, the network within the organization, So I'm not the smartest guy in the room, right? I have average intelligence, but I excelled because I'm a good networker, and that's probably why I have this job here. But that helped me uh, do well. If you're really, really, really smart and a poor networker, you're not going to get very far, right? So the networking skills, you got to develop those. It's a muscle. You got to work it every single day. You got to be networking. Um, the fourth is finding your superpowers. I touched on that a little bit, right? Go in deep, get some advice from your colleagues, figure out what you're really, 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 really good at. Okay, not what you're just good at, what you're fantastic at, and what your natural talents are. Sometimes it's hard to identify that, and now, because if it's easy for you, you think it's easy for everybody else, and you need somebody
Right.
else to come in and say, maybe your boss says, "Hey, Jack, you're really good at this analytics that you're doing here. Wow, this is really cool." And you're like, "Really? It's really easy for me." Well, find a job where you can use your superpowers all the time, right? So identifying what you're really good at is great. You can brag about it during interviews. You can give examples about it. People
Right.
want to know what you're passionate and excited about, and what you're really, really good at and what your superpowers are. The fifth
Right.
one, find your personal mantra. We talked about this throughout the podcast. It's that one sentence. Again, for me, it was finding a cure for cancer. What is your mantra, right? I call it PAM. What is your passion? What is your action that gives you your mantra? PAM.
Mhm.
My
Wow,
wife
I
helped me
really
out with
like these
that. So,
abbreviations. They're great.
yeah, because for me, I was passionate. Yeah, yeah, I was passionate about biology and chemistry. My action was to help the world, make it a better place, impact the world. And my mantra is finding a cure for cancer, right? It's an equation. P plus A equals M. What is your PAM? Think about it, and then you'll get your sentence that you have. Your sentence will be part of your pitch and your personal statement. Your mantra will get you through the hard times and the good times, and it'll keep you steered in the right direction. So that's my 5-point plan for success. You can use it for free. There's no copyright. It's all yours, and hopefully
Perfect.
you'll learn from that plan.
Absolutely. I feel like those were five amazing points. And honestly, like I had a few reflections or just thoughts I had while you were saying those. I really like your point on the internships. Was like, do you want the Carl's Jr. internship candidate or the Genentech internship candidate? And I feel like that's such a valid point because I feel like to some extent, students just do internships to do internships. It's always like, I feel like the mindset with the first internship or job has always been, oh, just get it to get your foot through the door. Right. But I feel like being very selective and working hard for that one internship that will give you that leverage later on is super important. As a point you drive home with that analogy with always be challenged. I feel like not even the PhD, but just hearing about your entire journey, right? You've always been challenged to push yourself more than others had to. And so I feel like it's not just the PhD, it's just something your work ethic has naturally developed as is. And yeah, I feel like just lean towards the pain is what you're saying. Wherever the pain is, find it and go towards that. And I really like that advice. Networking, of course, like I mean, I cannot emphasize how powerful that is. And honestly, like one thing I was reflecting on about recently was in the age of AI, I feel like knowledge becomes a commodity, but what still remains valuable is people skills because I feel like AI can never be able to replace that. So just adding on to your point there, like it needs more emphasis on the newer AI age. And yeah, like find your superpower. Pam, I love Pam. Pam is great. I'll be using that personally too.
Passion plus action equals mantra.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm
That's
glad you
great.
brought up AI, right? Because It's probably on the minds of a lot of your listeners, right? A lot of
Yeah,
your listeners
absolutely.
might be like, "Oh my God, am I going to have a job after I graduate? Is AI going to take over my job?" And it's like, and I can understand it's a source of anxiety, right? But there's a saying that I like to say with my colleagues here is that AI is likely not to take over the jobs of scientists, but scientists that are really good at AI will take over jobs of scientists that are not good at AI, right? So, we're in the age of AI. You got to learn it. Everything you're going to, every job is going to have some aspect of AI, especially in the sciences and in drug development. So make sure you got the skills, that you don't shy away from it. And unfortunately, some teachers kind of put a negative spin on AI that it's not a good thing, but you got to get good at AI and you got to get sophisticated about AI. Okay. Like prompting in ChatGPT to look up your searches and summarize a paper or make a figure. That's clerical AI. And it's kind of
Mhm.
like learning Microsoft Word or Excel, right? You just got to have that skill set, and you don't stand out on your resume if you say I know how to use ChatGPT. Okay, you got to be more sophisticated and push the boundaries where, oh, I know how to do agentic AI. I know
Mhm.
how to train large language models. Oh,
Right.
I know how to use AI to code. I know,
Mhm.
I know how to do some bioinformatics work using machine learning AI. Or I
Right.
know how to do generative biology. That's the holy grail. Generative biology, generative chemistry. So where are you on that spectrum? Are you on the far left where you're just doing clerical AI, or are you on the right where you're sophisticated enough to do generative biology and generative chemistry, right? So you got to take a hard look at that, and you unfortunately may have to learn it on your own because a lot of schools haven't kept up with the pace of AI in drug development, especially. So you got to go on YouTube, you got to do the readings, look up the papers, you got to figure it out. And hopefully when we look at talk about looking at your resume, to Carl's Jr. versus Genentech,
Right.
if you've got, you know, ChatGPT versus, oh, I've trained large language models, and I've got a lot of machine learning skills on my resume that I've actually done, you're gonna stand out, and it's going to be necessary. In fact, your resume should have a section for dry lab skills and wet lab skills. You got to be balanced with both those skills. If it's all wet lab, you're going to struggle a little bit. So balance out your resume with wet and dry lab and get some real life experience in it. Try to get, if you're still, in school, get a summer project with a professor that's doing large language models or something, and training models and developing stuff. Get into that mix on your own, and even so, and that would be really valuable. Even if you didn't get an internship at Genentech, if you did work with a professor over the summer on that one topic, that's really valuable. Your resume is going to look really good, and it may help you get an internship later on that's more valuable because you did that, right? So get
Mhm.
sophisticated with machine learning and AI and the dry lab skills, computational biology.
Right.
R is a good thing. The R studio, coding, and all these different types of skills are important for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just thinking about it as like transporting myself back in time to me being a freshman, you know, my degree was more so related to science. So like some degrees are more in a narrow path where you're only exposed to science but not the computational science aspect of things. So if you are in those sort of degrees, right, what should you be doing to expose yourself to agentic AI? Because the language of it is very different, and I feel like most students who may be doing pre-med or like might be thinking about pivoting from pre-med to um any field, it's almost like sometimes like a lot of workload. So how would you say is the best way to go about learning about AI in the biotech and pharmaceutical space?
Yeah, well, I would hope that there's some classes that you can take that give you basically the basics of
Right.
training models and understanding around that. So have a class or two on that. But the most important thing is is to do it. Get into a lab or a professor that's actually doing the work, and then you're doing the coding. You're getting deep into the work. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Try to find that. Um, you can find some YouTube videos as well that could help a little bit. But it's a fast paced industry, even for the biotech field, right? We're catching up and we're excelling, and but it took a lot of effort to get there, and it's moving. Every day is moving fast. Different models are being published and used, and it's really fast. Or read the papers and
Hmm.
get the language right. There's a lot of terminology that when you're interviewing, the interviewer will know right away that you have a deeper understanding of machine learning AI that goes beyond just using ChatGPT.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really love that advice. And so, as for the papers and the materials that you mentioned, what is your source of AI news in the industry, or like what sources do you keep up with to know about what's going on in the industry and to keep you up to date?
Great question. So we have a lot of resources at Amgen to keep our employees up to date on machine learning and AI. It's a very active learning kind of a process where we get tons of email, we get content almost every day on various aspect of machine learning AI that's taking place. And then within the departments too, there's good pressure to innovate around the use of these tools, right? So it becomes part of your day-to-day basis activities. Now that I'm away from the lab and I'm not leading a lab group anymore, and I'm in this role, I mean, we have our own version of ChatGPT at Amgen that's firewalled from the worldly ChatGPT, and we have an agentic workspace where you can log into this site and find all these agents and figure out how to use them and to work it out, right? So that's a really cool resource. We're always learning from each other, people are sharing prompts that they use to be productive and that sort of thing. So there's an ecosystem that's naturally evolved, but also purposefully evolved by our leadership to focus on machine learning and AI, because we have to train our employees. You have to train dinosaurs like me, right? Who've been in the business for many years. But the new staff coming in, they tend to know what's going on, and they stand out because of their knowledge of that, and it's a natural part of who they are, right? Like like using Excel or Word, they're naturally engaged in machine learning AI, and it's not a foreign concept that they have to catch up with.
Absolutely, absolutely. I actually love that Amgen is providing these resources and encouraging people within the organization to innovate, and I love the aspect of it being an ecosystem. But as a student who does not have access to that, uh, like, is there
Yeah,
any
yeah, that
article or like resource that they could use?
well, yeah, I think they're going to have to be resourceful again around YouTube and reading papers, maybe going to seminars or symposia or conferences. Um, Even, ABN, right? They network
Mm,
with some people that are in the field, ask them for
right.
advice on where to get some training and knowledge. There's a lot of class, like internet classes and stuff that around it. I don't know if some of them are paid or you have to pay for them or not, but yeah, you have to be resourceful. Maybe even ask your professors. They might also have some advice. But I found that a lot of the schools, unfortunately, aren't keeping up. So that's why I'm encouraging your listeners to take charge of your education around machine learning AI, because it's such a fast moving field that the classroom materials are just not keeping up.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. Like every day there's something new. So I mean, I'm sure like school systems can't keep up with that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah. Again, Renee, thank you so much for your time on and being on the podcast. I absolutely love this conversation. And I feel like it was a very deep conversation. Learned a lot about you. And honestly, it was very grounding in a way to be able to speak with you and to hear your advice and your backstory and really put things into perspective for me as well. So I hope it helped our listeners equally as much as it helped me. And also, yeah, just a final big thank you to you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. I think you're being really resourceful with using this tool to ABN, and you're really good at it. It was a really great conversation. You're super a podcaster, and hopefully it's just the beginning of your podcasting career. And we'll hear more about of you in the future, and we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you complimenting me on that, maybe this might be my superpower. I don't
Yes, that's right.
know. Exactly. So it could be.
It
But
is
yeah, again, thank you so
definitely.
much.
All right, man. And
um,
goodbye to your
mhm.
listeners, and good luck to you. And hopefully you have success in biotech, and you can start up your biotech career.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you to the listeners again. Stay curious and thank you for tuning into It's Bigger Than Biotech, and I'll see you on the next episode.